I hate that you said Al Pacino and my brain went Dunkachino.
Oh my God, no. Mica, no.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Hello.
Hi.
It's good to see you.
It's good to see you too. How are you?
Hanging in. We're just closing out campaign 2 in the process of moving at the same time and everything else. The world has got a toothache. I got a dentist appointment to go to after this, so it's been a lot, but I'm doing okay.
It's been a lot. A lot.
How about you? How are you?
I have been aggressively coping with horses.
That's awesome.
And it's consumed me, and it is now my personality. So, is that healthy? Probably not. Is it great? Yeah. So I'm just gonna vibe with it.
I don't think anyone's gonna judge you for that. Do what feels right after this past year.
That's fair.
We'll get to healthy at some point, I'm sure.
At some point. You know, some people did plants, some people did like sourdough bread. At the very end of my quarantine, I was like, what if I just became a horse girl? And now I have all of my own tack. I have my own saddle. I have a horse. Well, it's not my horse. I lease him. And it's consumed my life, actually. And,
there are worse unhealthy hobbies you could have picked up at the end of the quarantine.
Could have been cocaine.
Yeah, no. This much better.
Horses.
Much better.
Like, whenever my parents are like, oh, another expensive hobby. Like, oh, you did cosplay. Oh, horses. I'm like, okay, would you rather me collect, like, plastic waifus or heroin?
Yeah, it's a valid point. I think we'll go with that trail of life right there. Oh my goodness. It's spring technically, right? Almost
kind
summer?
of? Well, as you can see, I have a fan going here. I don't know if you can tell because of the lights. I have a ceiling fan going here. So in Los Angeles, spring is summer.
Yeah.
Living in the valley, summer is the deepest layer of hell.
Yeah. No. Completely agreed. Being a valley person myself, in the crucible of Los Angeles, it is a perpetual struggle to not just wither away into dust and shadow.
I'm halfway withering. The reason that we're filming, waist up is because I don't have legs. I've withered. I'm like a raisin.
Just like Mojo from the X-Men, and just like your chair beneath you. That's pretty great.
It was supposed to be, like a nice spring. I look forward to spring. Is technically my favorite season. I like rain and some of those like gray mornings. And we had those gray mornings this week. And then all of a sudden it was like, did you say 85, 90? Did you say air drier than anything you've ever experienced in your life? Are your cuticles breaking? Do you want to die? Is that a nosebleed? Welcome to Los Angeles.
Yay, you've made it to a season. We don't have a lot of seasons in Los Angeles. We have really, really stinking hot and like, okay.
Yeah, we have like, oh, it's so pretty. Like, yeah, drive in Beverly Hills, LA. And then we have, I want to just die. Those are our seasons.
There are occasional times I've traveled to other places in the U.S. or the world, and I see like different colored leaves on trees and clouds, and I'm like, what? Oh God! All the time I grew up, I didn't understand there are seasons.
There are seasons. I went to school in Michigan for 4 years, so I had seasons.
Yeah,
and it was very weird. My first transition from fall to winter, because I was like, oh, I need like a jacket and then a coat over it, and it gets colder. But when do I put the shorts back on? It should be shorts time now, right? Like, I don't get it.
What makes me sad is I think jackets are the coolest thing you can wear. Like, there's so many cool jacket designs out there. Just as a part of clothing, I love the concept and the look of jackets. And there's nary an excuse to wear them in California without just sweating your balls off for no reason than to look a little cooler, I guess. So.
Well, that's why we all turn into wimps during our winter time, because when it hits like 68 degrees, we break out like the Patagonias. Because we have to develop really thin skin, so we have an excuse to wear jackets. Have you noticed that every house in Los Angeles has a fireplace, but we really have no need for fireplaces?
That's a little weird. Well, that's not true. I need them so I can set my house on fire live on the internet. That's apparently a thing.
Yeah, you did do that. Hey, if it's any consolation, I almost set my eyebrows on fire when I was lighting my fireplace this season.
Congratulations.
So, thank you. So we were both being really stupid with our own fireplaces, and that's okay.
Perfect. Well, anyway. While we're singeing our bodies for nonsensical reasons, we have new Critter Hug and some new wonderful people to discuss and show off and just amazingly celebrate what they do.
Yes, I'm very excited. Although I do apologize in advance if Rini is a little bit barky. This is another reason I'm very excited. We are both vaccinated and we can hopefully get into the studio soon. We are having work done at our house and she is on guard dog duty and she thinks that her 9-pound self is going to protect me from the bad man who's washing our house. So
good for her. Rini,
yeah.
I like the cut of your chin.
But yes, Critter Hug. So many amazing people to love, so many amazing people to hug, and I'm so happy that even though we are still distanced, we get to do this.
I agree. It's been the continuous light at the end of each series of months tunnel to come back and put a little more love into the world.
It's true.
I'm excited to dig in for this episode.
Yep. In Los Angeles, when we don't have seasons changing, we know the seasons are changing with Critter Hug.
That's true. It's our personal calendar.
Exactly.
Not only is this guest one of the busiest, most talented performers on the internet, you hear him in every episode of Critter Hug. The one and only Critical Bard. He is the composer and singer behind the theme song of our show, as well as an actor, stage performer, role player, cosplay extraordinaire, community organizer, and everything in between. It's impossible to overstate just how much of a pillar CB has become within the streaming and RPG community. You can catch him on Tampo, a D&D campaign set in the islands of Suni'ina, Let's Get Wildmount, New Pantheon Academia, and Into the Mist, which is Realm Smith's Curse of Strahd campaign. You can also catch him streaming on Twitch, and we are so excited to finally feature all of his amazing talents here on Critter Hug.
Absolutely. I mean, CB has been one of the first kind of pillars that I was introduced to when I got into this tabletop D&D RPG world, and he has just lived up to the hype every moment I get to interact with him. It's also just so cool to meet somebody else who comes from a traditional theater background and loves D&D, because that's why I got into D&D. So we've definitely nerded out over that, like being actual stage actors and then coming into D&D. It's just, I feel like he has a little bit piece of something for everyone in this community, and that's so hard to find, you know?
Completely. I don't know. I was immediately brought in by just his general charm, not to, make him blush before we get into the interview here, but I don't know, there's certain individuals that show up and bring such kind of a vibrant joy and energy to a space that just elevates everyone around them, and you can't help but you get excited and smile whenever you see them come across your timeline. And then had the pleasure of finally meeting him in person at Gen Con a few years ago. And even though I'd been aware of him online for a while, it's always that weird experience when you meet somebody in person for the first time, but you've interacted online a lot beforehand.
Yeah.
And it's like both new, but also like running into an old friend. It's this weird combination of things. And he was just every bit as amazing, if not more so, in person. And I'm just so happy to have him within our community, and watching his star just continue to rise with every progressive month. It's incredible.
Yeah, and also he's one of the few other people that I actually take notes from him when it comes to insulting Brian. So, I have a lot to learn. I thought I was the ultimate Brian W. Foster insulter, but Critical Bard. Ooh, top tier.
Fair enough on that, indeed.
Yeah, and we actually got the chance to chat with him, which is super awesome. So let's take a look at that.
Omega, aka Critical Bard, thank you so much for joining us here on Critter Hug, buddy.
Hi. Hope y'all are having a good day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, much better now that you're here to go ahead and lighten it up. So thank you for joining us. Now, for the folks at home who may not know the man behind the jingle of this delightfully chaotic show, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you kind of rose to become a fixture in the TTRPG streaming scene.
Yeah, that was definitely a weird thing to happen, and I guess kind of ran with it. But yeah, I am a professional actor and vocalist. I've been singing since I was in church as a little kid. I was a soprano. I was a soprano until freshman year of high school, fun fact. Not anymore. But yeah, I had a family of artists, and I don't want to say artists, but just gospel singers and just folk who just used a lot of more musical talents. And I grew up loving music, and then my aunt was an actress, and I was like, let's do some acting because it sounds like fun. And my favorite, one of my favorite musicals is West Side Story, and the high school I was going to just so happened was doing West Side Story, and I was like, I have to audition. So that became my first show I ever did, and then I got the bug. I got stuck. And it was something that I wanted to do with my life. So I started acting in community theater and doing all that stuff. And I finally kind of just rose up. Finally got my equity card the day St. Louis closed down for coronavirus. So it's all good. It's fine. It's okay. But I've been thriving still, even past that. But with Corona and stuff, I was, even before Corona happened, I was, a fan of this thing called Critical Role, whatever that even is. No idea.
Never heard of it.
Nope, must be a local. Anyway, and I remember just browsing through YouTube and I came across Handbooker Helper. And I was like, this jingle is so cute. I want to do it because I was already using the acapella app, that's this really cool app on iPhone to do other things. And I was like, I want to do this jingle. So I did it, and I did it in my own little way. I did it actually while I was watching my best friend's kids while she was at work. And I remember coming home and like my phone just did not stop blowing up. And I'm like, what is happening right now? I just posted a random thing, found out that you shared it, Matt, and then other people talked about it. And then all these things happened. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? And I realized people liked, hearing music stuff. So I started doing more. I started doing other stuff, not really trying to like become this big person. I just enjoyed singing. I enjoy music. And I also felt like, no shade, I also felt like there was a lot of love going towards like visual artists, and especially in tabletop, but not towards like musicians and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. So I was like, let me do more so people understand that it's, this is also a valid form of art as well.
Hell yeah.
And people kind of get latched onto it, and then boom, this is what happened out of it.
Absolutely. And as you said, music is such a valid form of art that you, as we stated before, actually made the jingle for the show that you were on right now, Critter Hug. So what was your process of going through that? Because you said that you were on some acapella apps, but that was covering it, and this is your own original jingle.
Yeah, so when I was reached out to do this jingle, first of all, I probably peed my pants. Probably happened. I'm not going to confirm nor deny that one. But we wanted something simplistic. We wanted something that was like, if this is about the people, about the community, then I don't need to like add music behind it. I want it to be me. I'm like this acapella person entity dude. And I kind of started from there. Whenever I do music in general, I always think of one moment and I kind of build everything around that. So literally the first thing that came to my head was, and I was like, I want to keep that. I don't know why, but I want to keep that. And then I built the harmony around that. I built the random height stratosphere stuff around that, the snapping. And it was kind of a simple process, but it was nice to just see this seed happen. And then it kind of grow into this nice little thing that is now the theme song. I wanted to be kind of light and airy and fun, give you some good vibes, like walking down like in a park. Like I think of, what is it? Oh, I just had it in my head. And I said, hey, what a wonderful guy in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Arthur. I think of Arthur kind of just walking when I think of the theme song. So that was kind of the vibe I was going for.
Oh, I love it. It's so awesome. And I mean, to that point, we were already such fans of your work online and all the music stuff you did. And when the initial pass of the Critter Hug theme came through, we were like, I don't, there's no notes. This is just great. Put it in. Just put it in. It's perfect.
This is great.
I will not lie. I every musician has a moment when they're like, oh, this could have been better. I like the opening. I wanted to tweak the ending one just a little bit. But it's okay. It's in there and it's still great. It's But it's just my own personal thing going on. That's it.
Hey man, if you want to workshop any of it, just reach out and we can adapt and roll just like this show has since it launched.
Yeah,
valid.
Now, as an incredibly prolific creative across, not just music and theater, but also now the tabletop scene, like, What are some of your biggest creative influences in becoming an artist? Even from that young age, starting in choir and church, like what are some of the artists that to this day you're like, these people formed me?
Ooh, well, I mean, that's definitely like musical artists, theatrical artists, just people in general. And obviously, I have to give it up to my aunt. My aunt really inspired me to be a performer, like really pursue it. I think about not necessarily artists as well. I think about moments. Excuse me, gross. There are moments that really define me becoming a full-on performer. Seeing The Wiz for the first time was like, it's the Wizard of Oz, but better. It was all shade. And I was
not
like,
untrue.
but it was just like a way of seeing like people like me just living their best life. And I was like, that's what I want to do, especially Michael Jackson as a scarecrow. That's what I want to do. There's some theater artists, specifically Brian Stokes Mitchell, Leslie Odom Jr., Joshua Henry. Like those, they just really define what it is to be a strong Black male or masked individual in theater. And it just makes me just feel rejuvenated whenever I see them do something. I'm like, yes, that's me. Give me all of that energy. But yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely a lot. I just like seeing people thrive, and I can take small bits of everybody and just allow that to fuel me in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. And you talk a lot about representation and thriving in our communities, and you have been participating and obviously organizing some really enlightening and awesome, important talks on Twitch. So can you talk a little bit about them and what that process has been like for you from their inception?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the biggest one is the Black AF Roundtable. Keep it PG-13. So I mean, obviously we all know what happened. George Floyd was killed. He was not a martyr. He was killed. And I, we all just had a lot of emotion regardless. Because another fun fact, I'm from Ferguson. I was around the corner when Michael Brown was killed. Actually, when he was killed, I was at a rehearsal, and people were like, "You're not going home." And I'm like, "Why?" "Oh, that's why." But I was there when the guy, I forgot his name, and I don't really care to remember his name. He didn't get indicted for that case. It was a whole thing. Anywho, so like that was already fresh on my mind, and then this happened. It was just a lot of just inner turmoil, and I was just also thinking about a lot of racial tension that had been happening within the tabletop community, like people not respecting or not understanding when people of color say, "Hey, inherently drow and orcs are racist as heck," and they're like, "What do you mean?" And it's like we have to go through this whole thesis about why this is instead of you just believing us. And I finally said, you know what? Let me get a group of I don't want to say prominent, but a group of Black creatives in the tabletop community, and let's just talk. Let's have a conversation about how we feel race is handled, whether it's in game or out of game when it comes to tabletop. We're talking about mostly D&D, but tabletop in general. And it was really nice to get, Cypher of Tyr, Michael Sinclair II, Christina Ariel, Gabe James Games, Honey and Dice, just amazing individuals to just like sit there with me and just be them, just be honest and truthful about their feelings. And I didn't realize how much it would touch a lot of people, first and foremost. I also didn't realize how many people needed to hear what we said. Because a lot of people was like, oh, this makes sense. I should have thought about this and I didn't. And it's like, yeah, we've been kind of telling you for the past, a couple of years, but you guys don't listen. But no, yeah. And then, that spawned a couple of other talks. And it's been very enlightening because I think a lot of people understood, first and foremost, that we do talk about it. We do talk about the things that go on. And if you don't listen, we do jot that down. Note that. But also, it was just a way for people to understand and empathize a little better. And I think I want to say things since that first day we did that last year. I want to say things are a little better. But hey, things take time, and I humbly respect that things take time. But we'll see. Hopefully that things are better in the future.
Yeah,
that's all I want.
It's a process, regardless, and I know it's so important to have these conversations. Like a lot, there are always going to be, pardon the French, absolute dicks on the internet that will fight tooth and nail for anything that tries to change their very narrow perception and experience with the world. But a lot of people out there, it's just ignorance out of a lack of experience or not being able to have access to these conversations and perspectives outside of their own. And like you said, so many people were able to watch your roundtable and other discussions since and really kind of realize what needs to change moving forward. I know I've when I started playing D&D, we never thought about these things that I just assumed were part of the game and were not in any way, shape, or form offensive or coded or really considered racist tropes in the genre. I've had to learn over the years and correct myself and try and be better going forward. So, just for me, thank you for what you do. And please, if you haven't had a chance to check out any of the amazing Black AF Roundtable videos, you can find them online. There's some fantastic discussions there. Definitely worth checking out. Now back to you and your channel, because I want to make sure that we also get to talk about the amazing cosplay and fun makeup stuff that you do on your channel as well. What have been some of your favorite transformations and just kind of creative self-reimaginings that you've done on your channel? People,
I am a professional makeup artist in the sense that I've been doing this for a long time. And it's just been a lot of fun for me to just discover and play with paint. Because again, I cannot draw for a craft. I cannot do art on pencil and paper. It does not compute. But I can understand my face and I can understand other people's faces and how that works with color. It's so weird how I can understand this and not that. Anywho, and I saw, D&D is, and tabletop in general, is so full of just colorful and creative characters. And I was like, I want to put this on my body. So obviously, I got to give it up to Caduceus. Caduceus was a character that I was just like, look, this isn't me. You're just chill. Can you nuck if you buck if you need to? You surely can. But you are just like this. You don't let nothing phase you. You just, you know what? You're here, they're over there, and that's okay.
And that's your clerics, everybody. Thank your clerics.
Exactly. And that's just my vibe all day. So I was like, I got to do Caduceus. And I knew that I wanted to do more casual version of Caduceus. So making myself into casual CAD and then bringing him to C2E2 and all that stuff, it was just so much fun. Just doing the makeup and the contouring of his nose and just having a little, straw fedora instead of a big straw hat. I had a shirt that literally says T-shirt. It's just so much fun. I really enjoyed him. And he's one I'm going to bring back way too often because I can. I also really enjoy becoming Essek. Essek is probably my favorite NPC for many reasons. But there's a lot of artists who black code Essek. And you know what? Do what you want. Make him whatever you need to make him. But I was seeing those and I was like, I need to do this because this is just like my blood. This is who I am. So turning myself into Essek was a lot of fun. And he's one I definitely have plans to do in a more heightened sense, if you will. I think my last one, though, is probably the Laughing Hand. It was silly. Ooh. It was super silly. And I was like, I just want to do this. I had a random scarf, a random white scarf, like white gray scarf that I put over my head to be like, it's like his, hood or whatever. But it was a lot. It was creepy, but it was a lot of fun. And it was pretty simple. I like to take, my favorite arts are the ones where I can really change what my face looks like. Right. Not just making, like a beauty face or whatever, because I can do that all day. But I like to really change up everything to trick the eye to thinking it's something different. Mm-hmm. That's what I like.
Hell yeah.
Well, since you have so much going on, I know that all of the people watching this are going to want to keep up with you. What is your Twitch schedule looking like, and where can people watch? Where can people find your work, all of your music, all of your cosplays, all of your everything?
So fun fact, my Twitch schedule does not exist.
Gotcha.
Because I stream when I stream. I've been trying to make a schedule for a long period of time, and I can't do it. But I tend to stream at least 4 to 5 times a week on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/criticalbard, where I'm a Twitch partner. I tend to do things like Overwatch and Dead by Daylight and stuff of that nature. You can find me at Twitter. You can find me at YouTube, though I'm not on YouTube as much. Even on the TikToks, people use that nowadays. I'm kind of everywhere at Critical Bard, honestly. I have a store, critbard.com, if you want to get some merch. I'm not wearing any of my merch, and I probably should be, but hey, I'm enough self-promotion. I don't need merch to do that.
Exactly. You should be wearing the merch.
Yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, you can find me almost everywhere at Critical Bard. I'm always doing something.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Seriously, Amelia, you're amazing.
Thank you.
So happy to have you, bud.
And thank you for our jingle.
Yeah.
Hey, if you ever need anything else, hit me up.
Most definitely.
If you've ever dreamed of setting your next game in the fantastical world of Neverland, our next guest, Diana Gaeta, has made something just for you. She is the creator of Neverland The Impossible Island, a supplement for D&D 5th edition that whisks players off to a place of wonder, intrigue, danger, and unbridled imagination, inspired by J.M. Barrie's Tales of Peter Pan. But this is no normal Neverland. Diana has introduced some really smart mechanics and the beautifully original lore that make the world come alive in unexpected and thought-provoking ways. She also runs a podcast called Femsplained and is playing in a campaign of Burn Bright on the Unmade Gaming Twitch channel.
I'm such a huge fan of every sort of reinterpretation or re-envisioning of the original Peter Pan story, especially across different media, because there's very few stories that have the prominence that Peter Pan does that discusses kind of the transition of adolescence and the idea of eternal childhood, and watching each iteration of it kind of tackle new, interesting facets of what initially you think is a very small world. And what Diana's done with this supplement, and even when I first saw it, I've been wanting to talk about it on the show because it's just really incredible how in depth it goes and how it pulls so many unique facets of that world and fleshes them out in ways that you've never had a chance to really explore in other parts of the Peter Pan universe. Was the MCU version?
Well,
the PPU? No,
the PPU. It's actually it feels like a thing though, because I feel like Peter Pan, along with probably Alice in Wonderland, is one of those IPs that gets rehashed, reimagined, redone, and implemented in so many different mediums. But it's always good because if you think about it, Peter Pan itself is kind of it's 90% of the time
most
good.
of the time okay.
It's most of the time good. But Peter Pan in itself, like the story, the Disney movie at least, is kind of like a D&D campaign. Like a group of adventurers go on a journey and their end goal is to get home, you know? Like it feels kind of like a campaign.
You're kind of not wrong about that.
So it feels natural that Peter Pan is now part of like a module for D&D.
And it's extremely well put together. Like as far as supplements go that really kind of push into other forms of media, this one really just, I don't know, it's so polished and so well presented and kind of still feels D&D-esque, but definitely kind of creates its own unique means of engaging with it. I'm super excited for people to check it out personally.
Absolutely, same. And I think that this is the perfect transition to get into our interview with Diana, because we got to talk about all our little bits and pieces that we love just so much. We have Diana here. Hello, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. This is kind of unreal. Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, it is unreal. First of all, love your axolotl in the background. It's very adorable. You have very good taste.
Thank you. It's reversible.
Even better taste. Oh my goodness.
I use it to tell my partner when I'm unhappy.
Like the octopuses.
Okay.
I didn't know it came in axolotl. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
This interview has already topped all interviews. We've learned so much today in the first 5 minutes. But now it is time to learn more. So I must ask you, how did you first get into RPGs, just like as a whole?
Yikes. All right. So super long story, really short. I tried to initially jump in on my friends at the library. I call them friends, just strangers at the library, playing D&D when I was in middle school. And that's where I spent a lot of my time. And I remember it was the very first time that like this, group of boys were like, kind of like, get out of here. This isn't for you. Like scram. So I tried to jump in on it then. And then I forever, I was like, D&D, that is the game that is the mean boys game. I don't like it. For a long time. And then when I was in high school and I was going through my goth phase, some goth kids were like, hey, here's this thing called Vampire the Masquerade. Let's play this.
Hell yeah.
And I played that. And for a long time, had no idea that the two were even remotely kind of like similar things until later on when I was like, oh, wait, like I kind of like pieced it back together and circled my way back around to that. And then now just, now in my 30s, that's all I do. But yeah, pretty much high school is when I found it.
Shout out to those friendly local goths.
I know, really.
Hell yeah.
Truly.
The magical creatures that ushered so much of our formative years.
Very much so.
So you, in this project in particular, you've reimagined Neverland from the ground up in a way that feels like fresh, compelling, modern, and does away with a lot of the inherent problematic elements of the original story. What inspired you to initially create this setting, and what went into kind of recreating this iconic fairy tale, not just as an RPG, but as a modern story?
All right. So I guess short answer being queer is the answer that got me there eventually. I have been just obsessed with the story of Peter Pan since I was young, and it just has never stopped. It has burrowed itself into my brain as a story that I've never really truly been able to like concretely explain. Feels like a queer story to me. It feels like
100%.
a queer narrative to me. It's always resonated with me in that way. And then as an adult, becoming like totally immersed in the world of RPGs and gaming and stuff, I was talking endlessly with my best friend and co-host Avalon about these things over and over again. And she just kind of like one day was like, why? This is all you talk about is these two things is playing RPGs and Peter Pan. Like, why haven't you done something there before? And it was like a light bulb went off that I was like, wait, I can go there. The place that I talk about and think about nonstop, I can go there in my imagination if I want to. And that's what happened there.
That's fantastic.
Awesome. Peter Pan is absolutely a queer story. It's like if you obsessed over Peter Pan as a kid, you're queer now. That's just the rule.
That's the rule.
That's absolutely the rule. We all know this.
I've tried so many times to like articulate it clearly, and like the best part that I have come up with is explaining that J.M. Berri set up this definition of fairies that we have just accepted as like in our world now, is that like every little girl and boy are born into this universe, and each one of them gets like a fairy for each. And J.M. Berri like genders these fairies. It's like every little girl gets a little girl fairy and every little boy gets a little boy fairy. And then he immediately introduces Peter Pan, who gets no fairy and runs away from home and finds his own fairy. And it's Tinkerbell. And then they would literally rather die than be apart. And I think that it's just a beautiful thing.
That is my fault. I didn't clap enough for Tinkerbell, and she perished, and my computer stopped working. So I'm back now. I clapped for Tinkerbell. She's alive.
Every good computer runs on fairy power, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah,
that's very true.
That's the RGB lights. That it's just fairies like running on a treadmill. That's why she perished. Ooh, that got real dark real quick. Well, speaking of things being dark and different, you have created some new twists and turns in Neverland as we know it. But what are your favorite differences that you've implemented in your module?
So my favorite differences are actually things that I feel like J.M. Berri was saying, but didn't actually say. Like stuff that, I mean, maybe it's just me making it all up, but also felt like it was there somehow. like he just kind of throws in, I think it's like one sentence in one chapter in the beginning of the book about like how it might be possible that Peter Pan was meant to be this like ferryman that was traveling back and forth with, you know, with people who have passed on, particularly children, like to the afterlife. And like that, but then he just was like, but never mind. And I was like, well, wait, what if that was what it was supposed to be? So kind of, I liked playing a little bit with that as an idea. I liked a lot expanding on what else beyond Pan and the lost ones being on this island would be. Like, were there people who just didn't want to stay with Pan and make their own club, their own party, be their own thing? And I really liked expanding on that. And I liked the figments, just making up that this is a collective imagination land. And so all of the creatures in it have to be what would happen if we were just trying to will things into existence from the pieces of all of our memories and imaginations, and not real biological beings. So I liked that part a lot.
Yeah, and going off of the interesting Pan element there, for those who aren't familiar with this Neverland 5e set yet, Pan in this book, the setting, is not exactly the character that most audiences are familiar with or used to from a lot of the general media of this type of Neverland tale. Can you talk a little bit about what makes Pan unique to this particular story?
Sure. Well, I think what makes Pan unique in this is that Pan is kind of more of a title that's being passed down from inhabitant to inhabitant, and so there's the potential for you to have an evil Pan. There's a potential for you to have a Disney-esque, boy wonder Pan. There's a potential for you to create someone all your own to fit in that role. The only stipulation being that the Pan in the module that I created to make Neverland what it is that Pan is just not really following what the rules are supposed to be. There were rules set up for what Neverland was supposed to be, and Pan has disregarded them. And so now we've got this wonky place where no one ages and no time passes, and everybody just gets to kind of adventure for a while, and just exist. And so that's kind of, I guess that's what's different. Yeah.
I love it.
And speaking of all of the cool narrative changes that you've also made some really cool original mechanics for Neverland 5e. So could you give us like one or two of your favorite mechanics that you've implemented?
Sure. Yeah. I liked playing with flight. Definitely.
Oh, so
I liked
cool.
playing with flight. And I really liked playing with the memory aspect too of Neverland, where you forget whatever came before, unless you seek it out and you find different ways to regain those memories. And I think that lends for a lot of interesting storytelling, like potential in that. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, now
Heck yeah.
on top of Pan, Neverland, what other projects, if you can talk about, that you're currently working on? Are there any that you would like to share with our audience or tease?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about, so Neverland is actually just like right now, I'm releasing an update to it that includes like a subclass for paladins by Noir Enigma, who is awesome. And my best friend Avalon is also writing another adventure for it that's going in there. So it's getting a little update just to flesh it out a little bit more and have a little bit more content to it.
Exciting.
And then I'm working on a brand new game that is original for the first time. That is not anything related to a pre-existing game, which is nerve-wracking and terrifying. So that's what I'm doing now.
That's awesome. Well, please keep us abreast of that project. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really excited about that.
That's so cool.
Awesome. Well, where can people find you to keep track of all of your awesome deeds and what have yous?
I'm Super Dylan everywhere on all the online places. I'm on the Femsplained podcast. We are two femme nerds that you can listen to talk about nerd stuff in a place where no one can interrupt us or quiz us. And
that's real.
I'm on Twitter a lot. That's all.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us, Diana. Please keep up all the amazing work. And we can't wait to see what this mysterious new game project you're working on is once it comes into the world.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
So as a game master, I always do my best to embody any of the creatures that show up in a story. But our next guest takes that concept to a whole new level. So Flora is a makeup artist and costume designer who's been working her way through the monster manual, creating gorgeous conceptual takes on some of D&D's most iconic creatures. Her works on things like the Elder Brain and the Gelatinous Cube are unlike anything I've ever seen, and truly bring these creatures to life in a whole new way. From 3D printing to prop design to costumes and makeup, she is just an unbelievable talent, and you should really give her a follow immediately across the board if you haven't already.
Seriously, I've been following Flora for ages. I mean, talk about creativity. Some of the things that she does to create pieces and makeup, and I think actually she was one of the first introductions I had to body painting as an art form.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, as somebody who despises body paint on myself more than anything ever because it stains everything I touch, I'm so deeply impressed that she not only thrives in body paint, but has really taken the body paint medium to just a new form.
Yeah, I feel that. Ever since I did my Magus from Chrono Trigger Halloween costume in high school and got white paint everywhere, I'm in the same boat as you. So I always admire somebody that can, but it's much better makeup now because I did that in the dark ages.
Right.
But back to her work, it hits my cosplay heart and makes me just so joyful to see somebody who is so good at every facet of the craft. Like it makes me miss doing it, but also looking at it and go, but there is no better way to live vicariously through the hobby than through someone like Flora. Like, this shit is amazing.
100%. And I think that's a testament, as both of us are cosplayers. We're like, I know how long that took you. You did it yourself. The things that you've learned to implement all of this. It's like, on one aspect of just like an outsider, it's like, that's beautiful. But as a cosplayer, it's like, oh my levels of respect for you are just to the universe, through
all of it. Something universe.
Just something about a universe. It's as big as the universe. There it is.
There it is. We got there.
And it's just, she's just, I bow down to her skills. If I had pinky nail size of her talent, you couldn't talk to me. It'd be off on another planet, you know.
But we can.
We can talk to her. Oh my God.
We did.
Your interviews. Cut to it. We can't top that.
Right there.
Wow.
Cut to the interview.
Hello. We have the person of many faces, somebody who I have been following and stalking from afar for way too long. The wonderful and glorious Flora. Thank you for joining us.
Yay! Welcome.
So, you are known for all of your beautiful cosplays and your looks and your everything that you do. How did you get into RPGs and cosplaying to begin with? I know this is probably one of those sordid long stories.
I had started listening to, I think, the Adventure Zone 2017, 2018, but I'd known what Dungeons & Dragons was from like way before. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting thing. But I thought it was strange. Like I've always loved fantasy, like since I was a kid, but it just never crossed my path. And then someone recommended it, binge listened in the summer. And I was like, oh yeah, this is for me. But I never played my first official D&D game until like the following year with a group of friends. And I was like, oh, this is for me.
Oh, I absolutely love it. And for people who haven't had a chance, please check out some of these looks because they are extremely detailed, gorgeously executed. How much time does it take to like actually plan and execute one of these, like from start to finish?
It's like from start of flipping through the monster manual, thinking like boyfriends or makeup look. If I pick one, it's usually I'd say an hour's worth of thinking about the design, like going through, think Sherlock Mind Palace, where I just kind of go, what can I do with this? And then crafting will usually take about a week, just with like how big certain projects are. It really depends. Sometimes it's as simple as like I 3D print a little mini, stick it on my head, and the makeup does most of the work compared to a full like actual like accessory. And then that does most of the heavy lifting. But I would say an hour for design, and then off and on a week's worth of work. And then for the makeup, between 4 to 6 hours, and then shooting it another 2, and then an hour of editing. So longer than you think. And then you're like, oh, wow, that actually took me a really long time to do.
Well, it's a lot of skills and a lot of experience all put together to create something that amazing. So it makes complete sense when you see the final product.
Yeah. And one of the coolest aspects of your cosplays and your final products is the fact that they're gorgeous, but also really intellectually conceptual. So I gotta know what goes through your mind when you're thinking like, oh, elder brain, but make it fashion. Like,
gosh, it's like combining the aesthetic of like, so an elder brain, it's just like big, juicy brain with tentacles. And I'm like,
yes,
what can I do with that? Okay, that's more of a creepy Underdark vibe. All right, then that like mixes out a whole bunch of other things. I go, okay, if it's creepy, it's deeper colors, it's pale, it's all those sorts of things. It's like very wet looking. So I think, okay. With that in mind, I'll probably do this makeup technique. And it's just like things float in my head. Like, okay, it wouldn't be very structured. It'd be very soft. And then lots of gradients. And then just picking the color schemes that are matched from the art that I get from the book, really. And what complements, and then finding a wig that works with it. And then hoping it comes together. Because definitely halfway through, I'm like, oh no. On this. And then it comes together and then it works. Yeah. But it's just it's almost hard to describe. It's coming up with something with so much background in your brain, and it just floats to the surface and then kind of does that. And you're like, yeah, that works. Yeah.
For some of these, both from my personal cosplay and like theatrical makeup background, I'm personally curious, but I'm also sure that a lot of people who are watching this who have seen your stuff and want to try and kind of experiment themselves, like what are some of the mainstay makeup sources or companies and materials that you use for your looks that people can maybe look into experimenting with?
I would definitely say you don't have to buy the fanciest things out there. A lot of it is technique and practice. So you can make do with a cheaper palette, but it's just about practicing using what you have. I use body paints for a lot of the heavy lifting because they're quite opaque. So I would say eyeshadow palettes for like the softer gradient looks. But if you really want to paint something on your face, Maron Makeup is absolutely fantastic. I love that company. I have every single one of their paints. So like, don't get too hung up on getting like super fancy things. But if I had a brand to recommend, it'd definitely be Maron for sure.
And going off of that, do you have any practical tips for people at home who maybe want to start getting into the world of body painting and more theatrical makeup?
Done, not perfect is something I would say, because it's easy to get hung up. It's like, oh, it doesn't look right. But every time you think you're doing something wrong, you're just building another set of skills while you're doing so. There's tons of looks that I thought, oh, geez. But I would apply what I learned from that to the next one. So don't get hung up on like, it's not perfect. It's not exactly what I imagined, because you're just building a set of skills that will take you to the next level.
That's
Practice.
That's great advice that could apply to everything when it really comes down to it. I should listen to that in other facets of my life.
Seriously, I'm writing that down in my notebook.
I mean, it's very easy to think like I have to get this perfect on the first try. No, that's not how it works.
I agree with that. Now, I'm kind of curious. Hypothetically, if you were to have unlimited resources to create one dream D&D inspired look, what would it be, and how would you go about doing it?
Oh my gosh, I'd love to. I did a Tiamat look a long time ago, and I'd love to redo that with just like the full. It'd be more of a costume rather, because usually like I save time and resources by cutting it off right here.
Right.
Because I don't want to make the full cosplay, but I think Tiamat would be a really fun challenge again. I think I've got like a couple right back here. So definitely, Tiamat for sure.
But which head would you want to put on yourself? That's the real question.
Oh.
Would they all be coming out of you? Would it be like
I
your
would
head and then
say
others?
I wouldn't want to feature just one. I'd like to have them like surrounding me and then like just have them do most of the work and then be kind of like the conduit almost.
That would be cool.
There's so many monsters to pick from.
So many monsters to pick from.
Just one.
You're not wrong. I have my money in that. Maybe one day when you do a Tarrasque, I'll be super excited.
One day.
One day. It's only just because I'm a super Tarrasque fanboy. It's not even funny.
But also, have you done an owl bear? And if so, have you done a snowy owl bear?
That's actually in one of my sketchbooks. Like I will preload like a full I'll go through the monster manual and just go through and sketch things and then pick one to do a certain week. So like snowy owl bear is definitely there. Just a bunch of different ones.
Please don't feel pressure on the Tarrasque front.
Please do feel pressure on the snowy owl bear front.
But on the snowy owl front, totally, you have no other excuse. So.
Well, for when you do your snowy owl bear and your Tarrasque for Matt, where can people find your incredible work?
You can find me on both Twitter and Instagram at OFL0RA because the internet sucks sometimes and takes your username. You're like, cool, numbers, great.
Yeah.
You can find me there.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Now, thank you so much for joining us. This has been an
so
absolute
much.
blast. I can't wait for everyone who hasn't yet seen your work to go ahead and find the bevy of works you've done and just watching their minds blown, and we just be like, yeah, right? That's what the show's about.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you. And I
so
hope
much.
that you have a wonderful day. And
You
I
too.
wish that I could just steal your hoard and put it right there. It's so
Next to
beautiful.
Rini.
Yeah, right next to Rini. There she is. Our latest Critter Flag salute goes out to Game Chest, a local brick and mortar game store in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Run by Amanda Wormers and her partner, Game Chest prides itself on being a safe and inclusive space for all. They've survived some massive hardships over the last year, but have been able to hold strong and offer the people of Sioux Falls an accessible and friendly place to go for all of their gaming needs. So, Game Chest, this Critter Flag salute is for you.
For you, friends. Thank you for keeping the love alive out there in Sioux Falls. And like, to play off that, I have such a love for discovering small game stores in, the less metropolitan cities in the world, let alone in this country. And the fact that they've been able to maintain their personal business through this pandemic and continue to bring the joy of gaming to everyone around them is incredible. And I'm just so happy to see that we're starting to pull out of this and people have been able to endure and be there for everyone on the other side.
Absolutely, and I think it's also a testament to how important spaces for community are, that even in a small town where you may not feel like you see as many gamers or as many people who are very comfortable and open, that through the pandemic, they have persevered and they will rise again, and they're bouncing back because our spaces are so important to us and they're so loved and needed. So I'm very proud of everybody at Game Chest, and I'm glad that we got to... Rini's excited too.
Rini loves Game Chest, by the way.
Rini, and thank you, Rini, for the amazing transition into our interview with them. That's right, Beans.
And we are here with Amanda Wormer, the co-owner of Game Chest. Amanda, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you. So, I guess, because I'm always curious about origin stories, whether it be because I grew up with comics or otherwise, but like, what was the impetus, the inspiration for you to decide to go ahead and open your own game store out there in Sioux Falls? I
was bitten by a spider, and
Perfect.
Came to me one day in a dream. No, I grew up in Denver, Colorado, and I was the girl at all the holidays, just grabbing a game, putting it on the table, begging my family to play with me. And at the same time, across the Midwest was my husband, my current partner. He is a avid D&Der through and through. He was running games for his friends from the age of 12 and painting minis since he could walk, basically. So that's like his whole life was around miniatures and Dungeons and Dragons. And so when we met, it was, kismet. It was like, oh, I love games. You love games. I've always wanted to learn D&D. You love playing board games. Let's just do that together forever. So it was an easy in for us. And then from there, it was kind of always a dream of both of ours separately. So when we kind of came down to the wire of where do we want to sort of plant our roots and if this is what we really want to do, I was a sign language interpreter for 10 years before this. And I had no intentions of changing my career, but it just kind of landed as like, this is what our community really needs. And so we wanted to open an FLGS that really like spoke to me as a woman and as a queer person and just like was super welcoming and inviting to people. And Sioux Falls needed that. So we stayed.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And there's so many facets to running a game store, but what is your favorite part of running a friendly local game store?
The friendly part.
Heck yes.
I love that. I love being a part of the community and like really giving people a safe space to be themselves. And people who grew up in FLGSs understand that like that is, it becomes a pinnacle to somebody's lifetime, right? Like it is the place that you met your friends, or it's the place that you felt safe for the first time, or any of those things. To be that to someone is, there's just nothing better in my opinion. And I just love helping the community grow and seeing their beauty unfold.
I love that. Well, it's to your point, like growing up and having a local game store nearby was a safe haven at the end of school. And then, after work, it became this place that you look forward to going. And I think it's so important to not just foster that community, but to continue to make sure that it's open and inviting to everybody. Because when I grew up, there was a very certain type of person that went to those game stores, and just watching it continue to expand and just become so much more about everyone should be part of this community is so important. I love that you're maintaining and continuing to keep that going out there. I'm kind of curious, in being kind of the friendly local game store of Sioux Falls, what beyond just the inclusivity, what is something your store is known for in that community? What do you, is it like a quirky story or a specific odd thing about the store that everyone goes like, oh yeah, no, this
that's
is
exactly. Sometimes for us, it's actually kind of that we've moved a lot. So our quirk is that we're hard to find because we've moved 4 times in our first 2 years. We moved 4 times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because we kept outgrowing places. Our first location wasn't ready, so we had a pop up, and then we outgrew that place, and we outgrew that place, and then we came into this new location that's perfect, and then the pandemic hit. So
right.
But it was just like people were seeing articles about, oh, they moved again. So that was kind of our like little thing at the beginning. Now we're just known for being the place that can like summarize a board game in a minute or less.
That's beautiful. I love the idea that the store had like Poco evolutions throughout the history. Yeah, it's rare that you have to chase a game store because it's just moving and growing too fast. So
right.
I think it's a pretty cool quirk.
It's a testament to how awesome you guys are that you literally kept outgrowing your game store.
Right. And we had said about On Move 3, we were like, gosh, we should have come up with a Pokemon name for this because that would have been amazing.
That would have been amazing.
Final evolution.
Right? Well, I love hearing about your game store and your community, but I also want to know a little bit more about you specifically. So other than obviously board games, I can see behind you, what do you like to do for fun?
my husband and I are both artists. He, like I mentioned earlier, he paints minis. I love to paint canvases, and I grew up singing, so I do a lot of like at-home karaoke now. And then we have 3 lovely cats that pretty much fill all of my. I know, they're wonderful.
Follow-up question: what are your cats' names?
Wallace Wells.
Aww.
And Amelia Pond and Arthur Weasley. And they all fit their personalities perfectly.
Are the last 2 gingers?
Amelia is a calico, and then Arthur is, of course, a ginger. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
He's so curious. He's such a good boy.
My heart.
That's wonderful. Going off what you were saying earlier about how the pandemic hit, right, as you got to this new location, I mean, this has been a particularly challenging year for game stores across the country. So I guess I'm curious as to how the past year has been for the store. What challenges are you still facing coming out of that the community might be able to rally around?
That's a great question. We didn't have a website because we had really built ourselves on this belief of being a brick and mortar place and having that connection with our customers. And so we spent a lot of that time just trying to build a place for people to buy from us online. And we've been very fortunate that our community has gone through so much strife because they were just like, okay, it's just another thing. We've moved 3 times. This is just another thing. But I think that, there's a lot to be said for the commitment and the courage of people who are gamers. At least the people that we've known. I know that the critters are this way because all the people in our community who are critters are this way. They just committed to that growth of that community and to their FLGSs, and they really love with their whole hearts. And so what we've done is just love back with our whole hearts and just, trust that in the end, what's meant to happen will happen. And we're fortunate enough that, 14 months into this, we're still here and we're doing okay. And, we're having this conversation right now, which is a testament to all of that. And I'm just really grateful for, what this year has taught us about ourselves and our community.
That's so wholesome. I love hearing that. Well, kind of off of that, where can the critters and the people watching this right now find you? Do you have your social media, your website, everything, so we can just keep flooding you with love and good vibes and friendliness?
Yeah. So all of our media and website are SF for Sioux Falls Game Chest. So at any media, social media, you can just search the tag SF Game Chest and you'll find us. But also on Facebook, we have an amazing community group called Game Chest Community, and you're welcome to join that. It's all just about hanging out, being nerds, and having a good time. So.
It's awesome!
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Well, thank you so much for joining us and sharing the joy that you share out there, and anybody in the Sioux Falls area out there in South Dakota who's been looking for a place to convene with other like-minded geeks. Please, when you have a chance, go ahead and check out Game Chest and give some wonderful love to these wonderful people.
Please do it.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us, Amanda. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you so much.
No.
We did it.
We did it. Another wonderful gathering of wonderful people that everyone should go and give love to and follow and patron to, because they're all incredible. And that's what this is all about.
Matt, if they patron to them, that's too many warlocks in the world. I feel like we need less warlocks in this world.
There's no such thing as too many warlocks.
They're absolute. Could you imagine if everyone was just going around Eldritch blasting everything? That'd be a nightmare.
It'd be fun.
No, Matt.
You're probably right. See, Dagon agrees with me on this one.
See?
Dagon
Our pets are very vocal today.
Yeah. Most people think, large, dark entities. No, I just signed a pact with my bird.
Right. Oh my, that's a great. That should be a subclass, like a pet warlock. I don't know how that would work.
There you go.
But instead of like Eldritch Blast, it's like bath time, and you just go bath time. Everybody goes no, and oh my god,
so the spells affect animals, or are you getting your power from the animals?
You're getting the power from the animals, but instead of an Eldritch Blast, because that's not scary to animals, they don't know what that is. But the power of bath time. That's terrifying.
So people who normally like baths, through the power of your eldritch magic, you now make afraid of baths.
Yes. And then instead of inspiration, they give out scritchies and
okay, that too. That's pretty great.
see, we gotta get. No, wait! Cut all this out. Wizards can't know. We have to write this. Cut all this out. This is for us. Trademark. Nobody look at me.
I like the idea of just animal pet themed spells like that, where the druid just seems jealous at that point. The druid's like, this is my thing, man.
Yeah,
you can't really do that.
You can get something else. Like, come on, you guys.
Eldritch birdies, as opposed to like these force blasts. It's just these little like energy birds that just tweet really loud before they impact and explode. Like,
absolutely. And when you reach a high level, that's when you start getting the horse stuff. Because have you ever been kicked by a horse?
I can say I haven't in a long time.
No, well, it's not great. It's not somebody who has a lot of bruises on her right now. Getting thrown off a horse isn't great either.
Nature, she's a fickle beast.
Yeah, truly. And horses, even ficklerer. They're even ficklerer.
There it is, the fickler patron. That's the pact. The Pact of the Fickle is the name of the title of the subclass we've spontaneously designed. It's not balanced, it's not finished, but we'll work out the kinks as we go.
When you said Pact of the Fickle, I just imagined like a tsundere warlock patron that's like...
That's pretty great.
I don't even need to give you powers, Baka. It's not like I like you or anything. And then like, if you don't talk to them long enough, they take away your powers. And then you're like, no, I'm sorry. And they're like, I mean, I guess you can have an Eldritch Blast. It's not like you're my patron or anything.
At level 4, you automatically become like 19 years of age with like blood type O negative. Yes! And you stay there the entire time.
All of your armor is short schoolgirl skirts.
There you go.
And blazers. Oh man. An anime RPG. No, we can't keep talking. We keep giving away our good ideas, Matt.
But you see, there actually are some really, really good anime RPGs out there that play into these tropes. I'll send you some emails, or maybe on a future episode of Critter Hug we'll talk about it. But yeah, there's some fun bits that really play into the anime tropes.
Well, everybody, this episode of Critter Hug is over. We have some things to research and some games to play. It has been nice seeing everyone. Go hug yourself. Matt, we gotta go. I'll meet you at your house in 20 minutes. Let's go.
Let's go.
Come on, get in the car. Get in the car. We gotta go. Bye.